friends, and welcome back to Tim Kirby Russia. This is part 2 of our interview with Alex Christoforou, who is also a member of the Duran, sadly not Duran Duran, but the Duran, which is one of the best places where you can find out information about Russia. And Alex himself, on his own channel, does daily sit reps, sometimes 2 or 3 thrice daily sit reps about the war in Ukraine, news related to Russia, geopolitics, and all that. He is a great guy, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy this interview. Well, this is just a continuation, I should say. So if you want to see the beginning, go look on my channel for part 1. But here's part 2, Alex Christoforou, beginning right now. Now, over the last few months, the mainstream media has been telling us that Kiev is winning heavy-handedly, that they are crushing the Russians on all fronts, and that any sort of backwards movement, it's all part of the plan, or Russia's just throwing a lot of human wave attacks at them or something. And the side stream, alternative media, and especially the Russian media has been telling us, well, kind of the opposite. So who do we believe here, and why should we believe them? In other words, how can we find truth about what's actually happening in the war? And maybe more importantly, who's actually winning?
Well, I mean, I think it's clear now that Russia is winning. My take on the war from day one is that Russia is winning, and Russia is going to win because Ukraine to them is existential. And for Europe and for the US, it simply is not. And as a matter of fact, I think if you go to US or UK sites, say BBC or Fox News, you'll be hard pressed now to find Ukraine stories on the front page. Ukraine has definitely dropped off of the front page because it's just not that important. Yeah, it was cool the first 3-4 weeks. Everyone got to put their little Ukraine flag on their social media profile. They said, "I stand with Ukraine," and it was the next cool thing after, I don't know, COVID and the lockdowns and whatever else, Black Lives Matters, all these things that it was cool to virtue signal about. So Ukraine was the next one, but for the Russians, this was not a virtue signal. This was existential. This was important to them. This was not a war that had just begun on February 24th. This was a war. This was a conflict, a special military operation, call it whatever you want. This was an issue that started in 2013, 14, and actually could probably even go further back. Maybe you can go to 2004, 2005 as well. So this was something that the Russians weren't beginning. This is something that the Russians were finally finishing. And so I knew from day one that whatever was to happen, that Russia would win because it was that important to them. Now, who's winning today on the ground? I think everyone, including Ukraine, they have admitted that Russia is winning. For this, there's no doubt about it. Even the Ukraine figures, I believe today, I forgot the official, but one of the Ukraine officials, he came out with the statement during an interview to CNN, and he said something along the lines of 500 Ukraine military was dying a day. I think he was actually overstating it. Now, granted, he probably wants weapons and money. That's why he was overstating it a bit. But just 3 weeks ago, we had Zelensky come up with a number of 60 to 100 Ukraine militaries dying a day. A week and a half after that, the number then became 100 to 200. And just today or yesterday, we had the CNN interview with a Ukraine official. I think it might have been, I may be wrong, but I think it might have been the defense minister, but don't quote me on that, who said 500. So it's not good. It's not good for the regime in Ukraine. They're losing bad, and the weapons that Europe and the US that they're providing them are not going to make any difference whatsoever in this conflict.
Now here's a question. If Trump were still in power, would it make a difference?
Yeah. I mean, look, I think that's a question that a lot of people ask us, actually. And I think about this quite often. What would the world be like if Trump was president? Now, a lot of people say, well, Trump, he gave Ukraine a lot of weapons, lethal weapons. I believe he was the one that started giving the Ukraine military javelins. And we've seen how those javelins have turned out. They've been a dud, actually. They haven't really done much. But I believe that if Trump was president, we would not get into this mess. And I'll say that for 2 reasons. I believe that Trump did not like big wars. Maybe he allowed the neocons or a neocon faction in his administration, which was a big mistake, the fact that he let so many neocons into his inner circle, but he did. He let the Boltons and these guys into his inner circle. That was one of his big tragic mistakes that actually hurt his reelection campaign. But saying that, I believe that Trump was willing to give the neocons tactical wins, but he was very much against. He tried to avert big conflict. So he would allow the neocons, for example, Soleimani, a terrible thing that happened. We did not support what happened to Soleimani, but I think that one got away from Trump, but he let it go. The neocons got him, and I believe that Trump may have not been in the know there. I think that may have been something along the lines of Pompeo and these guys, but it doesn't matter. Trump was the president. He shouldn't have let it happen. It happened. But in Trump's eyes, it was, you know what? I'll give them that, but I'm going to avert a big war with Iran. And they averted it. I think the same would have happened in Ukraine. I believe that maybe small things might have gotten away from Trump, but he would have avoided a big conflict with Russia. That's my belief on the issue with Trump. The other reason I believe that Trump would not have allowed this to happen is I believe that any president, even Obama, with a working mind, would have not let this happen, because they would have just looked at all the facts in front of them, and they would have said, sorry, this is madness. I can't let this happen. It's going to destroy our economy. It's going to do this much damage to Europe, to the American people. We could end up in a nuclear conflict. There would have been 50 reasons why they should not do this. And even Obama would have said, we can't let this get to the level of conflict. Regime change in Ukraine, fine. Coup in Ukraine, fine. Javelin weapons in Ukraine, fine. But there is a red line for us that we just can't step over with regards to Russia. Biden, well, he's not there. He's not running anything. He's not there. And so who do you have running things? You have Blinkens and Newlands and Austins and all these people that aren't accountable to anybody. And so I think for those two reasons, Trump would not have let this happen. And the one reason is because I believe Trump did not want a big war. But the second reason is I believe any president with a working, functioning mind would not have let this happen.
You know, you and your partner at the Duran, Alexander, have really become the people that the public is turning to for information about what the heck is actually going on. So the question is, how have you not been banned on YouTube yet for what you've been saying? And have you experienced any personal blowback for your opinions and your work that could be considered by some to be the acts of Russian agents?
We have had one big cancellation a year before the special military operation, and that was PayPal. They canceled our company account as well as our personal accounts. But that happened a year before the special military operation. Since the special military operation, knock on wood, we haven't really had anything like that. But we've been calling it very objectively, I think. I mean, we've just been trying to say the truth, and we're not very sensational in our reporting. We try not to call things over the top. Do we joke around about stuff? Sure. I mean, my programs, I try to add a much lighter spin to things, and I try to be a little more add a little more comedy, even though it may be satirical or dark at times. I try to lighten it up some. Alexander is more analytical in his analysis, but for the most part, we try to avoid a lot of controversy and just try to focus on how we see things playing out. Does it lean more Russia at this moment in time? Absolutely, but it leans more Russia because the facts as they are on the ground are in Russia's favor. If Russia and if the Putin government, if they were doing bad things, like really bad things, we would call them out on it. In this case, the truth is on their side, and we just can't lie about it. We can't say, Ghost of Kiev, yes, that's true. No, it's not true. It's not true. And we can't say that all of a sudden Putin just woke up. yesterday, he just got out of bed and he said, I'm going to invade Ukraine. That's not true. There's reasons for why he did what he did. He warned the collective West on multiple occasions over an 8-year period. So, we're just trying to get to the truth. In this instance, the truth is on the Russian side and the Russian people's side. It's just the way it is. It's reality. And so far, we've been reporting the reality of things. Have we gotten certain things wrong? Yes, but when we get things wrong, we come out and we say we got it wrong. We don't hide behind anything or make up excuses. We say, on this story, we missed it. And we say it and we admit it.
NATO was formed in theory to help Western Europe defend itself against the aggressive tendencies of communism that was coming for them. Okay, but when communism lost the Cold War in the 90s, Putin revealed at the beginning of the special operation that Russia was actually on its knees and begged to be a part of NATO. And they were rejected. And here we are now. Again, a very non-communist Russia is in conflict with the West. So as we see, no matter what Russia does or what happens, NATO is an anti-Russian organization. But does this have to be? Why does the West need Russia as an enemy? Why does it need NATO to continuously put Russia in this sort of enemy box? What is the logic behind this?
Well, I think one thing that we've all realized, and I think a lot of Russians have realized it, is that there is this ingrained hatred for Russia and for Russians. It pains me to say it, but there are a lot of people in the collective West in positions of power that for some reason, they just have a hatred for Russia and for Russians. And it really doesn't have anything to do with Putin, even though Putin is kind of the proxy for them. But it just has to do with the fact that they just don't like the country or its people. Why? I can't answer that. Maybe it has to do with the fact that Russia marches to a little bit of a different beat. Maybe the traditions, the culture. Maybe it's the orthodoxy. Maybe it's the language, the alphabet. I mean, as a Greek, we also have a different, from the West, we have a different religion and a different alphabet and things like this. But for some reason, there are a lot of people in a lot of positions of power who just have this hatred of Russia. But for NATO and for the European Union, I also think it's an easy, comfortable, and good business model. And NATO needs to expand, because if it stops expanding, then the business is over. There is no business anymore. There's no product to sell. The minute it stops expanding, the minute it doesn't have an enemy, it's out of a product. What it sells is the hatred of Russia. That's its product. The EU, it also needs to expand, and it needs a purpose to expand. And why should the EU hate Russia? Because, well, Russia is the antithesis of European values. So if you want to, in order for us to promote European values, we have to expand and we have to fight these Russians who are the antithesis of these great, shiny EU values that they always talk about. And that's what they're selling countries, EU values, which, are meaningless, but that's their products. So I think that for a lot of people in these big, massive organizations with these huge offices, and they employ hundreds of thousands of people, the minute they stop hating Russia is the minute they go out of business. And so I think it's absolutely necessary for them to hate Russia. That is what they do. That is what they make. That is what they produce. That is what they sell, is hating Russia.
So anyways, guys, if you enjoyed this video and you like the opinions coming out of my big fat mouth, then join up on my Telegram channel. That's Tim Kirby Hardcore on Telegram. Link, of course, in the description.